Good evening. My name is Danny Sargent, and this evening I will be providing a financial analysis on General Motors. Here's some background information on General Motors. General Motors is a billion-dollar company with operations all around the globe. This presentation will focus on cash flow and the overall financial position of the company. Cash position and financial strengths and weaknesses will be analyzed. All data within this presentation was obtained from GM's 2020 10K annual statement. And just a footnote that the data within this report represents millions of dollars unless otherwise noted. So in our third slide here, we're going to see the consolidated statement of cash flows, once again from GM's 2020 10K statement. These figures were the basis for this presentation. On our next slide, we are going to see here the three major sources of cash flow within General Motors. So our cash flows from operating activity, the three major cash flows include income from continuing operations at $6,667, depreciation and impairment of equipment at $7,332, and depreciation and impairment of property at $6,786. Our next category is cash flow from investing, marketable securities and liquidations at $62.65, principal collection on finance receivables at $22,005, and proceeds from termination of leased vehicles at $13,302. Our final category, cash flow from financing, we have proceeds from issuance of debt at $36,937. and proceeds from issuance of preferred and common stock at $457. GM major uses of cash include cash expenditures from operating activity, including pension contributions and OPEB payments at $985, changes in other operating assets and liabilities at a debit of $3789, and then in other operating activities at a debit of $873. Cash expenditures from investing include purchase of finance receivables at a debit of $24,538, expenditures for property at a debit of $7592, purchase of leased vehicles at a debit of $16,404. Cash expenditures from financing include payments on debt at a debit of $39,156, dividends paid at a debit of $2350, and other financing activities at a debit of $253. So now we just want to talk a little bit about GM's net income versus their operating income. So just a few basics here. Operating income refers to revenue minus any operating expenses. Net income, however, refers to revenue minus operating income with the addition of non-operating income. So net income is going to capture more of the cost than operating income would. Examples of non-operating income, which would be captured in net income, would include things like taxes and interest payments. This slide, we're gonna explore net income versus operating income calculations. So GM's net income for fiscal year 2020 was $66.67. GM's net cash provided by operating activities, operating income for fiscal year 2020 was $15,021. So to calculate the amount spent on operating funds, we will use this formula. So we're basically just subtracting the net cash provided from the net income. And that gives us a figure of $83.54. Therefore, we can say that GM spent that $83.54 on operating costs in the fiscal year. And we further know that it's important to know the operating costs of a company to determine efficiency of operations and to ensure money is being spent wisely. After reviewing GM's cash flow statement, we can say that they definitely have some strengths. Overall, I would say GM is in a strong financial position at the close of fiscal year 2020. Based on the continued operations numbers at the bottom of page 52 in their 10K report, GM has held a steadily increasing cash flow for the last 3 years. Additionally, GM's cash flow only dropped by $553 million during fiscal year 2020, which indicates they are in a strong financial position. This is a very small amount of money when compared to their overall revenue and cash flow. GM has also paid down a substantial portion of their debt to the tune of $39,156 in this fiscal year. And they have also invested a sizable portion of cash in property holdings at $7,592. These are all good indicators that they are in a strong financial position. Several weaknesses that were identified in the cash flow statement. On page 68 in the notes on debt, GM states they have an unsecured revolving credit facility, which is authorized to spend up to $2.0 billion. This is for their financing operation for vehicle financing. Given this debt is unsecured and obviously represents a very large sum when compared to the overall cash flow of the company, I would say this unsecured revolving credit is a potential detractor to investors. Furthermore, GM also reports in their notes section they have spent $892 million drawing out of several global markets, including Europe. This reduction in market share could be seen as a weakness to investors and a potential detractor for those who are wishing to invest in the company. So at this point, I would just like to wrap up this presentation. This has been a very quick snapshot of GM's current financial position and a look at their cash flow from fiscal year 2020. Our final page here is going to list our references. We have a document link here for the GM 10K that was used for the basis of this presentation, and we also have a reference for our textbook that we used for the other information. Thank you and have a good evening.